Hello and welcome to the Bridge Church Next Gen podcast. This is Pastor Blake. Joining me today, our kids pastor,
Pastor Philip Hahn.
Pastor Philip Hahn. And today we are talking about the fun, mysterious, crazy, adventurous, dangerous, all the different adjectives, the online world.
Yes, the magnificent internet.
The magnificent internet. Recently, we just had a young adult lunch, and one of the questions we were talking about discussion-wise, Pastor Phil, is I asked the question, would you rather not bathe for a month or not have internet access for a month? And the first person at our table actually chose to not bathe for a month. That's crazy.
I don't think it's as crazy as you think, because think
That's
about how many
crazy.
things you use on a daily
I
basis
know.
that require internet
I
connection.
know. Well, we even said you can still use it for your job. That way you don't get fired. But it's just
fair
personal
enough.
personal usage, which ones you pick, and they still chose internet. Nuts. That's crazy. So today we're talking about this online world that your students are probably facing, that you might even be dealing with, and wondering how do we protect our students, how do we protect our kids from this online world that pretty much, like you said, everyone is living in to some degree.
Your kids are living in the world of technology and internet, and so don't live ignorant to the fact that your kindergartner has access to internet content, whether it be at school, at their friend's house, you handing them your iPad. The schools all hand out iPads now to all the kids, and so they've got access there, and they've got free time during class that they're able to go places that maybe the school doesn't know about. There's no perfect filter, but by age 8, most kids have viewed porn.
Yeah, well, I have a statistic about that. There's an article that we'll put in here that you can click on in the link, and then if you ever want to head to bridgechurch.net/youth, there is a little section for parent guides. And one of the parent guides today is actually what we're talking about, is internet filtering and monitoring. How do we do these things as far as protecting our students without feeling overbearing or knowing that this isn't the answer, but it's a part of the solution? A recent survey found that 46% of minors who have seen pornography first came across it by accident.
Mm-hmm.
That they're just on the internet, maybe working on a school project, maybe they're at a friend's house, they accidentally stumble upon this thing that we've seen be so detrimental in people's lives.
Yeah. So it's not that your kid is a bad kid.
They're terrible.
Going out looking for stuff or hanging around with the wrong crowd because they're showing them stuff
at the convenience store.
Hanging out in the bathroom, smoking. But the point is, it is not because your kids are bad or because their friends are bad. It's because that's the world we live in. And so if it was, if it's on the billboards, it's in their brains. Yeah. And so you can't stop them from living in this world. And so the best way to help them deal with it is to get out ahead of it, not to act in ignorance that it's not happening, but to at least be intentional about what you're doing to help your kids navigate it.
Yeah. Let me read this quote for you, because I think this kind of embodies what we've talked about before we jumped on air. It says this: your ultimate goal as a parent is to raise kids who use the internet safely and responsibly and think critically about their actions. But a little technical assistance can help, and as your kids get older, you'll need to dial down the restrictions to help them develop their own sense of responsibility.
Yeah, that's really scary for a parent.
To
dial back your control.
Sure.
Start handing the keys over to them, and it's like, maybe you can have control of what you view. It's like,
But that's the goal we've talked about, is if we can help our students be the ones that make good decisions as opposed to just put these blockades up in front of them.
Yeah, because the knee-jerk reaction as a parent, I want to protect my kids.
Mm-hmm.
If I only protect my kids, they will go out into a world and they won't know how to protect themselves when they leave my care.
Mm-hmm.
Or I will wait till the last minute. Oh, guess what? You're moving out sometime this year to go to college. Maybe now I should start preparing you for making the decisions for yourself. It's like, well, by then it's a little too late. You've already learned how to depend on me for making your decisions for you, and now you're going to do it yourself.
Right.
So really what I was talking to Pastor Blake about earlier was we really want to make sure that although gatekeeping and filters and rules they're really helpful and necessary, but they're not the point. The point is to create an internal motivation in your kids where in their heart they want to choose the right thing.
Right.
Whether they always do or not is really something that grace covers, but really that instill in them more about the why than the what. It's not, here's an internet filter, here's a camera in your bedroom, turn in your phone after such and such hour, let me do the passcode to your screen time. Those are all important and good. But if that is the only thing keeping them away from something dangerous or excessive, then you're missing the point. Right. So the conversations, although those tools are important, when you're talking about it, you're not talking about the tools or the rules. Mm-hmm. You're talking about, why do you want that? Have you read your Bible and prayed today? Well, maybe instead of saying we need more filters, more locks, more rules, maybe say, maybe we really need more Jesus in our day. How much time did you spend in worship this morning? How much time did you spend in the Word? What have you been seeking God for next that you want to change your internal motivation? So instead of more rules and filters, how about more Jesus, and let that be the primary focus of all the conversation?
Just take the world, but give me Jesus. Come on now. I heard a good analogy. I think it's in this article that talks about if you're driving on the road, especially in a highway, there's sometimes road barriers or blockades, and those are useful for when we start to get off of course, or maybe the rumble strip. I don't know if you did road trips with your parents or anything. My dad was notorious, shout out Bruce, he would ride on the rumble strip. And I think he did it a little intentionally because he would accidentally get there and then she'd be like, no, I meant to be here. Like he wouldn't. But those things are there to wake you up or to help you correct course. And that's what we think of these filters is they're not going to be the thing that ultimately makes you stay in the lane, but they're going to be really good for when you try to go out of the lane.
That's a really good analogy. And I know that's true of my life. It's like I have an internal motivation that I want to please Christ with my actions, my choices, my viewing habits. But I have gatekeepers too. My wife knows my cell phone passwords. Yep. My wife has the screen time passwords. I've got internet filters on my phone, not because that's what's motivating me to stay in the lines, but I want a guardrail there in case I'm tempted to stray outside the lines. I want to make sure that that's a safety net.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's not what keeps us driving straight. We need to learn how to drive.
Right. Yeah.
We need to learn how to drive, not learn how to bounce off of the bumpers in the gutter.
Well, I love what you just said. This article talks about accountability, technology accountability is how they phrase it in your homes and introducing it to your kids, because there's some people that are listening, hopefully, that have elementary students and that hopefully their kids haven't had a ton of access to internet yet. So they're able to implement these things at the beginning. Mm-hmm. But then there's some people listening who their kids are already teenagers and they've had a smartphone and they're going, okay, how do we backtrack this? How do we get ahead of this? And they give some really great solutions, different questions to ask. But I love what you said about, hey, there's accountability for me. And I think that even gives opportunity for you to talk to your kids about, here's what I do with my account. It's not an age thing. It's because I know the dangers of what is on my phone. Mm-hmm. And so here are the systems I have. And I read this thing, and this is pretty dramatic. I want to hear your thoughts on it. They say, if you're going to ask your kids to be able to look through their phone, you should almost give them the access to look through yours as well. That as a family, we keep things open here, and there's accountability across the board.
Secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a problem with that. I would let my kids access my phone. The only thing that I would make an exception of is if there's content that relates to other people. Like,
sure.
I wouldn't let them view my private conversations with like somebody who's going through a marriage troubles that I'm counseling at church or anything like that. If you've got a sensitive work topic that you can't let your kids see, that's a different issue. But I think that's a good practice. Secrets aren't generally good for anybody.
Right. Yeah, and something else they suggest is this thing, if you're an iPhone user, and it could be on Android, Pastor Phil, you might be able to help me with that. You're just so knowledgeable.
I'm sorry, I'm an Apple guy.
I know you're Apple, but I'm saying I know you know things. So screen time is the thing that you can put on Apple devices, on iPads, on iPhones that limit the amount of time they can have on certain apps.
Yeah, and all major smartphone companies do that in their software,
Phil.
And Nintendo does it too. You have screen time on Nintendos, and I think there's a version of it on Xbox, but it's really easy to get around, I think. But you bring up a good point. Screen time is not just the access you have to certain apps or the restriction level of content.
Mm-hmm.
It's also just knowing if technology becomes what's most important to them.
Yeah.
They're gonna find stuff that's unhealthy to do. I mean, not necessarily.
We'll get there. We'll get there in
porn.
a second. You're rushing ahead of me because I just wanted to ask you. This is the accountability thing. For us, me and my wife, we don't have any kids, but we noticed that we were on our phones a lot, and so we have set up screen time passwords for each other. And something we do is we only have a certain amount of time on social media in general, and we don't know the passcode to each other's or to our own phones. It's each other that does that. And something that they suggest is accountability with your kids. If you have a limit for your kids on what they can be on, you need to be setting that for yourself as well.
Yeah, I think healthy boundaries includes guarding your time.
Yeah.
Not just the level of content you allow.
Yes.
And so making sure you limit screen time to allow for what is most important to your family, whether that be worship or prayer or family devotions or game night or everybody turn in your phones as we lay down to dinner and have some personal one-on-one time. So whatever be intentional about the amount of time you allow your kids. Otherwise, technology is going to become more important in their lives than their relationships are.
Yeah, and lead by example through that, right? Is you want to be the one that says, "Oh, hey, I purposely am off of my phone because I want to spend time with you. You're valuable to me." And you can have those conversations like we were talking about earlier. Man, it's all about that conversation that you have before the rules at all. Of this is why we're doing this, because you're valuable.
Yeah, we've talked about this in a previous podcast, but if the only time you're talking to your kids is about what they need to do not do, you're not raising your kids. You're not spending any quality time with them. You need to have a game night. You need to have family devotions.
Yeah.
You need to have dinner time where you talk about your day. And so if the only time you're talking to your kids is brush your teeth, put on your pajamas, get ready for school.
Yeah.
I found this in your backpack. What is this? If the only time you're talking to them is to correct or tell them what to do, you're not having quality time. So screen time your own self and make sure that your family isn't just a technology family.
Right. That's good. Yeah, so let's go back to the kids are creative. Kids are smart. And all these barriers we put up, they can figure out ways around them.
There is no such thing as a perfect filter.
Yeah.
There's no program. There is no filter. There is no camera. There is no rule that works as a perfect safeguard, which is why internal motivation in the heart is more important. They have to desire to do right, not just have enough guardrails around they can't go off the road.
Yeah. This article on Axis that'll be available for you guys lists like 15 ways kids have figured out loopholes around different parental controls. And some of them, we talked about it earlier today, it's dramatic that they're willing to give up a lot to get back on whatever screen time thing they want to. Or
yeah, if they just want to keep playing that game or keep surfing that app or keep watching those YouTube videos or whatever it is that they feel like they're addicted to need more of it, they will do almost anything to get there. And trust me, there are ways around every single filter out there, and they can find them.
Yeah, and we can get technical real quick before we close. I do just want to keep referencing this article. That's where I know I'm getting a lot of.
Where do they find it again?
It is bridgechurch.net/youth under parent resources, but it'll also be in the description. I'm going to put it in the description of this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be on YouTube as well. There's 3 levels
in that
of
parent
filters.
resource section, what's the title of the resource?
Great. It is called Internet Filtering and Monitoring.
Internet Filtering and Monitoring.
Yeah, there's a ton of them. It's at the very bottom on my screen right now. But the quick details, logistics of this thing is there's 3 different types of filters: an ISP level, which is your internet service provider; your router level, that's hardware; or a device level, which is software. And all these do different things. Again, none of them are perfect. Sometimes you can actually work them in unison together to create the mega filter blocker, if you will. It's like all of them. And there's a ton of different softwares that are listed on the website. I know you mentioned one earlier.
Covenant Eyes is the one that I use, but there's so many.
So many. And what I really love about this is it tells you the pros and cons of each one of them. You can look into them it's again there's different pricing options available, and when I think about the price, because at first I was like, well, this is a good cost, why are they charging for it? Why are they charging us money? This is so important. Why are we doing this? And I'm like, well,
Somebody's got to run
someone's
it.
got to run it. But then too, the question I would ask parents is, what would you pay for your kids to be safe on the internet? And that might sound a little dramatic, but it is a world of which we're living in where there's
Yeah.
a lot of crazy things on there, and a lot of things that are seeking them, not your kids seeking them.
And it's not just things like pornography.
Yeah.
I mean, there's predators, there's violence, there's unhealthy, untrue messages coming through various social media and news media that's feeding your kids ideologies that maybe you disagree with. There's all kinds of bad stuff in there.
Yeah, that's great.
Sounds like a good stopping place.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor Phil, for your wisdom and insight. And thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you later.